What's going on, everybody? Today, we're going to talk about RFK Jr. torpedoing his trust and respect even further. His reputation is sinking because after just a couple weeks in HHS, he has now basically declared anti-Semitism a public health threat in the same way that Democrats declared racism a public health threat, which everybody criticized when the Democrats did it. We're going to get into that whole story, exactly what he said and exactly how ridiculous it is. I have a lot to say about it. We're also going to talk about Andrew Tate has been criminally investigated in Florida upon landing in Florida. And I also find it really interesting that all of this is happening at the same time as the Epstein files thing has been botched. So is this kind of like a cover story for that? Is it just a coincidence that this is at the same time? We'll talk about that, and I do have some opinions about that as well, which I found out are very controversial. Andrew Tate is he's almost like a Donald Trump figure at this point, where the people who hate him really hate him, and especially on the conservative side, it's like people are just rabid at the mouth, and I didn't realize it was that serious. Like, I know people like him, people hate him, but I didn't realize the extent that people hate him, and I understand that there are reasons, but we'll get into that, and then I think at the beginning of this live stream, we'll have a little bit of fun before we get into the more sensitive and deep topics. But this is Dream Rare Podcast. Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you. Give me a thumbs up in the chat, thumbs up for the algorithm on the video, and the show has started.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Appreciate y'all. And I don't know what's going on here. Hopefully this doesn't delete it, but we had a little technical difficulty. I think we're good. What's up, YouTube? What's up, Facebook? Before we get into the fun stuff, because I do have some comedy to do at the beginning, just for my own entertainment purposes and yours as well. Got to start it with a laugh because I don't want to just cry. But jokes aside, here's just some pictures of Trump's speech. I missed it yesterday. I was a little bit busy, so I'm going to go back and watch it probably, or at least listen to it. Here's some of the characters, as I like to call them, gremlins, that are really upset at Trump's speech. So I like to caption this one with, imagine explaining to the founding fathers that this is progress for America. What in the world is this purple-headed gremlin? Like, who votes for this? Can somebody let me know what district she serves, like what coat she's wearing? She looks like the lady from, I'm trying to think of the movie, The Emperor's New Groove. Like, what is going on here? The gremlins came out to play, and they were not happy at Trump's speech. I'm not sure why or what part really bothered them, but like, who is this lady? It's like high school never ends for these people. It's just one big kindergarten session for the big babies here, holding signs, looking like just shoveled gargoyles, for lack of a better term. Am I allowed to say that? Is that hate speech or is that just comedy? I can't tell anymore. But the gremlins and the gargoyles are out in full force, full form, fully formed in front of the American public for the speech. Like, they're like, we left the speech. Like, look how angry these people are. They couldn't even be a Walmart greeter because they're not pleasant or helpful enough. Like, these people just are so annoying. So annoying. And then what tops it off is they had a little counter speech. All the gremlins, goblins, and gargoyles got their best goblin together. And it ended up being Alyssa Slotkin, the former CIA agent and senator, to take on Donald Trump in the Democratic rebuttal, in which Glenn Greenwald hilariously pointed out that she was like, it was better when we had Ronald Reagan around. But at the time, they were saying that Ronald Reagan was, corrupt and fascist or whatever, and that he had too much power with the intelligence communities. And now they have somebody from the intelligence community doing their speech. I mean, we live in clown world. Maybe we'll start calling it goblin world because it's funnier. I just like the word goblin. It just has a fun goblin, it just makes you want to giggle just saying it. A gargoyle, a goblin, a goon, gargantuan goblins out here. Got to check out the speech, but I'm entertained just by the memes alone. I'm not going to lie. So today, I guess Amy Phony Barrett, Amy Baloney Barrett, Amy Coney Island Hot Dog Barrett, whatever you want to call her, Our Majesty Amy Coney, the supreme leader of the courts, she voted she was the dissenting vote out of the people that are not supposed to vote that way, who are not letting Trump cut foreign aid, which makes absolutely no sense. It's like America just has to give out foreign aid. I guess Thomas Massey made a good point. Congress could stop it at any point, which they don't. So there is a valid point to that. But once again, I have to bring this up before I get into it. I hate to just pat myself on the back. I really do. It just really gets old for me. My arm starts hurting, my back starts hurting. It's like abuse at this point. No, I'm just joking. But everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, she tricked us," or "Oh man, like she really wasn't who we thought she was." Like, and "Oh man, she changed on us." I just got to bring up this tweet again because there's a tweet for everything, folks. I said this before she got confirmed. I said, Amy Coney Barrett supported the Orwellian lockdowns. Is President Trump about to set America up for failure? So some of us, not all of us, most people don't in this space, but some of us actually do journalism and we constantly get blamed and attacked and hated for it. And they say, "Oh, you're just a downer. Oh, you hate President Trump. Oh, you hate Bobby Kennedy, blah, 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 blah. You're just so hateful. You have so much hate in your heart." Whatever. I don't know. My job is to look at the facts, and the facts were that she supported lockdown. So I have a laptop and a cell phone. I figured this out. How did President Trump not figure this out? I'm not sure. He had a little DEI hire because he didn't want to deal with all the drama from a man because they persecuted, whatever his name is, Brett Kavanaugh, whatever his last name is. So they went with the DEI hire, Amy Coney. She was pro-lockdown beforehand. She voted to keep mandates in place for college students. And then they're just like, yeah, that's a good choice. And the college students thing came after. But all the evidence was there that she was horrible and not going to vote in favor of conservatives or basically bare minimum liberty in this country. But Trump picked her anyway. And then everybody acts shocked like 5 years down the road instead of realizing it at the source and using our leverage to be like, "Hey, Trump, you should probably pick another judge." Everyone's like, "Yeah, she held up a piece of paper." Cool. What did it say? Nothing on it. It was a blank piece of paper. Whatever. Enough of that. Let's get into the actual story. Hold Sorry, we're getting haunted by the goblin. The goblin popped up. Oh, gosh. Oh, no. I'm trying to do a real news story and the angry goblin's here. Sorry. Dude, they always pop up when you least expect. I did that purposely, by the way. That's just part of my joke. It wasn't a mishit. I'm just that funny. But oh, no. Oh, no. The goblin's back. The purple-haired goblin.
Give me everything I want. Give me abortions. Give me free health care.
Oh, I mean, that's valid, but I guess,
Give it to me. I want everything. I don't want to show my ID when I vote. I want my abortion pills.
Relax, lady. You'll get your goblin sauce. You'll get your goblin dessert right after dinner, but you got to relax. Keep it calm for 2 hours, an hour, and let the president speak. You can't just be yapping about trying to Uber Eats your goblin medication to the big speech. Okay, my gosh, can't get anything done with these Democrat gargoyles. All right, I just wanted to stall because my coffee is gonna get cold, so I can do this. Okay, so let's get into the first story. Bobby Kennedy. And, I before I show everything that I have to do, it's a hard one to explain because some people are like, yeah, what he's saying is true. But it's just, not only is it not true, it's just so bad. Beforehand, we knew, if you paid attention, that Bobby Kennedy was very honest about every topic, except for one topic, except for, in my opinion, Israel anti-Semitism. And I'm not saying you can't support Israel. And I'm not saying that you can't hate or whatever. Like at this point, it just gets so liberal. It's like, I hate racism. I hold a sign that says I hate racism and I pass anti-racism laws. That doesn't stop racism. And the same is true with anti-Semitism. Okay. Before I get into it all, I want to read this because I really thought it out and typed it out and I posted it yesterday. And I don't think I'm going to be able to replicate exactly what I said here. So these are just some questions to ask, right? Here's some questions. I'm just going to list questions. Questions to ask yourself. Does letting government police hate and hate speech work? Does it work? Letting the government police hate and hate speech? If it does, you think it works. Should every race and religion have hate speech phrases policed by the government? If you don't think it works, letting the government police hate and hate speech, why does Israel one race and one religion get special speech phrases pushed into governments around the world, not just in America, around the world. Does it only work for them? Do they need special speech rules that consider parts of the Christian Bible anti-Semitism? Why do Republicans support this definition of anti-Semitism that makes part of the Bible anti-Semitic? Why does no media cover it and smear every person who does cover it as an anti-Semite? Have you ever actually read the definition being pushed into the United States of America of anti-Semitism, what the actual definition is that is pushed around the world and in America? Why do people who spent 4 years telling the left wing that the government shouldn't police hate and hate speech think that these type of rules work for only one group? A huge portion of the Republican Party has either never thought of this, is in on it like the politicians are, or is so deeply programmed by fake opposition media that they can't even comprehend what I'm saying. So before I get into it all, do hate speech phrases, calling things hate and fighting racism, does it work? If it does work, should every race get one? No, only one race, one religion, one country deserves the speech laws. They only work for them, not for everyone else. It doesn't make any sense. So to preface all of this, the Obama, Biden, that Democratic Party, they sneakily, because of course HHS is supposed to look after health and human services, health, the pharmaceutical industry, the drug industry, the medication industry, just physical health, nutrition. I mean, these are the things, obviously healthcare plays a role in that and the finances of all that, but that's what the healthcare industry is supposed to talk about. We don't need everybody acting like Rachel Maddow. We don't need everybody acting like somebody on Fox News, right? Somebody needs to do their job. Like my job is not to march around with a foreign flag in my hand and say, I'm mad that the border's open. Like my job is to do journalism, right? Everyone has a job in this world. What is the HHS's job? RFK is supposed to look into the pharmaceutical industry. RFK is supposed to look into the nutrition of this country, into the healthcare. That's his job. His job is not to equate anti-Semitism to racism and say that anti-Semitism is a plague like racism is a plague, and that's what's infecting our countries. Oh, is it Bobby Kennedy, you fraud, you coward? Bobby Kennedy's a fraud. I despise Bobby Kennedy now. I don't care what they do with him as far as like, you know, oh my gosh, they're hating on Bobby. Who cares? He's a coward. He's a spineless nobody like Bernie Sanders. He cucks, he caves. Bobby Kennedy is nothing to me now. He hasn't done anything at HHS, yet declare anti-Semitism just like racism is a plague infecting humanity. That's what he's doing. Not looking into the pharmaceutical industry, not getting the dyes out of the food, not looking into seed oils. He's declaring this magical hate word that's being passed into governments around the world as a plague. That's his job. That's not the job of the HHS. It's not the job of the Democrats. It's them extending their power to basically strong arm people into being psyoped into thinking that the government can classify hate and persecute hate and stop hate by using every agency, including health agencies, which have nothing to do with it. And every person, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, whether you're white, whether you're black, whether you're Asian, whether your skin's dark as the night or light as the, you know, white wall behind me, we're all dealing with problems from the food and drug industry, all of us. Yet this is what Bobby Kennedy does. When's he going to put out his anti-Christian speech or anti-European speech? Anti-Europeanness is a plague. Is that a plague too, Bobby, or no? Is there only one type of hate that's a plague to the world that needs to be policed? Because policing speech doesn't work, but it does for them. You know, classifying hate and racism, when the left does it, they lie. But the right just tells the truth about it because Fox News and Bobby Kennedy would never lie to you. Fuck these people. Excuse my language. I'm so tired of their deception and their deceit. Bobby Kennedy is another fraud, and we're going to look into why, because he flew on the plane a few times too. And I never brought it up because I gave him the benefit of the doubt, because it's not a crime to fly on Epstein's plane, but he did, and he's acting like somebody who did, in my opinion. So let's look at what he said, because it just gets worse and worse. Remember, he's the HHS director. He's not, I have to let people realize this before I play it. He's the Health and Human Services director. He's not a DEI hire, HR, human resources person for the Democratic Party or for Republican donors. He's supposed to look into the health for all people, not be divisive with certain, oh, they're receiving hate. Well, what if their people hate on me? What if that group hates on me? Is there a word for that? Or is it the same word you're saying? Because I get in trouble for noticing that other people hate me, even though I don't like hate. It's like, what is hate? Somebody could hate the truth. Somebody could not like my reporting. People could not like my hair. It's just like some people don't like Christ. We can't talk about that now, can we? But other people love Christ, you know? But no, everything's just hate and racism now, isn't it? All right. Here's Bobby the fraud, the scammer Kennedy, explaining what his role at HHS is. And my gosh. Bobby the fraud Kennedy says, anti-Semitism, like racism, is a spiritual and moral malady that sickens societies and kills people with lethalities comparable to history's most deadly plagues. In recent years, the censorship and false narratives of woke cancel culture have transformed our great universities into greenhouses for this deadly and virulent pestilence. Making America healthy means building communities of trust and mutual respect based on speech and freedom of open debate. I'm going to read a Michael Tracy post because I think Michael Tracy nailed it here. He said, you have to reread this statement a few times to appreciate how insane it is. Apparently, RFK Jr. has accepted that he has to give up on combating greenhouse gas emissions, which he would like to do. So his new greenhouse gas he's going to combat is anti-Semitism, and he's going to rid America of this pestilence by building communities of trust that are based on speech freedom, as he's announcing an intergovernmental initiative to regulate and punish political speech he doesn't like. The cherry on top is the random blather about woke cancel culture, which makes absolutely no sense in this context. This one is really an all-timer. It really is. I have so much to say, if you could tell, but I want to start with what actually matters. What is the definition of anti-Semitism, right? It's like asking somebody, what is hate? What does racism mean to you? What does racism mean to you? Because to the left, racism means you can't disagree with George Floyd or, it's a dumb example, but you can't disagree with like Al Sharpton, that's racist. If you don't like Hakeem Jeffries, that's racist. If you don't like Joy Reid, you're racist. If you don't want, every movie character ever to just majestically turn black after 40 years of being white, you're a racist. If you don't like, if you want people to have IDs when you vote, you're a racist. So racism is hard to quantify because it's a word that can expand and contract based on who's saying it. And you could just accuse anyone of racism at any time. And if you're on the left, they'll probably give you a gold medal for it. And if you're on the right, you have to pretend like it doesn't exist until like a Democrat says something mean. And then you got to be like, the real racist is the left. And everyone's like, give this guy our money. Give this guy our money. He's like, the real racist is the left. The real racists are on the left. Oh my gosh. Dude, what a brilliant speech from Benny Johnson. No, I'm just kidding. But the real racists are the left. The parties never switch. All right, dude. No, but you get what I'm saying. It's like racism is exaggerated about unless they're right. Or like if, black people in South Africa are saying mean things to white people, they're the real racists, but whatever. It's like, what does racism mean? I don't know. Who are you talking to? Who are you listening to? Everyone will say it's everything. My walls are racist because if I was really not racist, I'd paint them black. This is the logic that some people have. But luckily, although there is a lot of DEI stuff, which is heavily covered as it should be, they don't have that much. They do have a lot of legislation to like stop certain races and start certain races. And we all talk about it. But as far as like speech regulation, it's the social media companies, et cetera. And I don't know exactly what the government does, but a lot of people are looking into it and I'm all for it. I want things that are just honest. I'm tired of this like fake, lopsided government stuff. When it comes to anti-Semitism, this is what I want people to understand. I know if you watch Fox News, you think that word means Hamas, right? Hamas, and then and then you want them to pass legislation, throw them out. We got to get them. Have you ever read the definition of anti-Semitism? Because it's not what Mark Levin says. It's not what Sean Hannity says. It's not what that woman who screams like a bird, Marisa Bartiromo, said. Like, it's what the government's passing. There's an actual definition of anti-Semitism. And I've explained it, but I'm going to slow it down for the people who are years behind on this topic or just want to hear it again, sharpen their skills. The definition that actually matters of anti-Semitism, and this is almost universally agreed upon by most world intercontinental Jewish organizations that also, if you say they exist, that's anti-Semitism because you can't say they do things worldwide. That's hate speech, even though there are the World Jewish Congress, the Anti-Defamation League. There's a bunch of groups, and most of them agree and push one definition of anti-Semitism that means 10 to 12 different things. It's called the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. If you want to know what the hate speech rules and phrases are in Europe, in America, being passed into our legislation, but obviously we have a First Amendment, so it's harder to actually enforce. It's called the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. It's the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which means if you disagree with the speech laws, they'll probably accuse you of something else as well because they put that word in the name of the speech laws. These speech laws were created, I think, in Bucharest or something in the 2010s. So it's not this like 1,000-year-old definition that they've had. Of course, things have changed over the years. That's why when Candace Owens debated, I think his name was Rabbi Barclay, Candace Owens, I remember that was a great debate. It's probably deleted off the internet because it was so interesting. But, you know, Candace said, let's start with what's the definition of anti-Semitism, because I don't even know what it is. And then Rabbi Barclay said, you know, it started like 2,000 years ago. And I think he was referencing, or, you know, a lot of people reference like Jesus's disciples. Like that's when anti-Semitism started, those pesky people following Jesus and their anti-Semitism. But anyway, it's like Candace started moving forward in the debate. She's like, you know, there isn't one set definition of anti-Semitism. And he got really upset by that. He was like, there actually is. There actually is one definition of anti-Semitism. We actually do agree upon it. Like, you know, he was trying to say like there is an agreed upon definition of anti-Semitism. And in some cases, he's right. It's the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. It's being passed. I mean, Google IHRA, pick a country, pick a city, and it's probably been passed. Sao Paulo, Brazil, it's been passed. Australia, passed. Canada, passed. It's called the working definition of anti-Semitism. And you could literally like play a game and just be like, is it passed here? The answer is probably yes. Like that's how consistently passed into governments that it is, right? In this definition, this is why I get there's multiple layers to why I'm annoyed with Bobby Kennedy. It's not because I like hate. I don't like racism. I don't like anti-Semitism. I don't like anybody that hates anybody. Like I'm not a hateful person. It's just the reality of the situation is when you start screaming like, you know, racism is a plague that needs to be killed because it's deadly. Like, what are you talking about? Because the people that are pushing that, they think that it's racist to close the border. So what they're really saying is if you close the border, you're going to kill people, which is what Democrats literally say. They're like, Trump's hurting people because he closes the border. Trump's hurting people because he wants them to have an ID to vote. You understand? Democrats lie and exaggerate about racism, even though there is hate in the world. They exaggerated about it to basically say that you're physically hurting people with your free speech. You're physically hurting people with the truth. You're physically hurting people by securing America's borders. You're physically hurting people by allowing people to have the First Amendment. These are the games that the left plays. That's what Bobby Kennedy's doing with the right, is he's saying this hate. Why doesn't he do a statement and say anti-Christian hate is a plague that's killing people? Why doesn't he say anti-European hate is a plague that's killing people? Anti-Muslim hate's a plague that's every type of hate the same, or is one type of hate different than others? And when you listen to certain people, especially certain, not all, but certain scholars and rabbis, they'll say, no, one type of hate is more important than others. It is more historic. It does need speech regulation because this type of hate is just so much worse than others. And it has, I get it. I get the point that they're trying to make. But with Bobby, it's like, why are you saying that? And people are like, but he said free speech in it. But he's trying to say that free speech and thought crimes are killing people. So now that he says anti-Semitism is a plague that is like worse than anything, it's a greenhouse gas, it's killing everyone, whatever, you know, he says all these things. What is the definition of anti-Semitism that he's saying is hurting so many people? I'm not going to bring up the entire thing on the screen, but off the top, I'll list some of the things that the U.S. government considers anti-Semitism. To repeat some of my last journalism that I've done, the U.S. State Department has issued a warning to India saying that they were committing anti-Semitism because certain people in India were saying that George Soros was funding politicians, and they were putting out some sort of imagery about George Soros basically puppeting their politicians. That's considered anti-Semitism. India, even though they're pro-Israel, is not supposed to notice that George Soros funds politicians because that's anti-Semitism. Because if you talk about it the wrong way, George Soros is Jewish. So is Mark Zuckerberg. So is a lot of people who own a lot of things. So it's like now when you're talking about people that own massive corporations, you're committing anti-Semitism because you, peasant, talking to that person, he just so happens to be Jewish. Now you're being hateful. Now it's just you saying, oh, what are you trying to say? That people of this ethnicity control politics? That's one of the anti-Semitism rules. You can't say that. Even though George Soros literally funds politics around the world, like that's obviously true. And one of Trump's biggest donors just happens to have that ethnicity and just so happens to want Trump to do things for Israel. You can't talk about it because now that's hate. And according to Bobby Kennedy, that's the type of hate, even though it's factually true, that's the type of hate that is just hurting people because you notice that that's happening. And the people on the right will tell you, oh, no, it's not hateful to point out George Soros. Not to you, it's not. But according to the rules, you're flirting on the lines of anti-Semitism. Let me show you an example real quick of when Donald Trump broke his own anti-Semitism hate speech laws. Donald Trump has passed these through executive order. Ron DeSantis has passed them multiple times through legislation. Name a Republican and they've probably passed it. I mean, Governor Kemp passed it, the HRI definition into his state. Sarah Huckabee Sanders passed it into whatever state that she serves. You can't find a Republican state that hasn't passed the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism into their state, which includes the word Jesus. So now they're making biblical discussion around Jesus anti-Semitism, but nobody on Fox News talks about it. Daily Wire barely covers it. Finally, Matt Walsh did after 5 years of Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk essentially smearing everybody who noticed it. In 2019, a lot of people noticed that DeSantis and Trump were passing anti-Semitism laws. And of course, these are not holding up necessarily because of the First Amendment. They're trying to force them in, but it's going to become a constitutional crisis, or at some point there's going to be big court cases over it. But people notice, they're like, why are they passing hate speech laws that include the Bible? Why are they passing hate speech laws that say that you can't say they own banks and media companies? Why are you passing hate speech laws that say that you can't say people have loyalty to countries when there's literally spies that have had loyalty to countries like in American history, but you can't talk about it now? Like, they're passing these weird laws that prevent you from saying things. As soon as people noticed it in 2019, there was a massive media effort. Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro were the two ringleaders that were like, oh, they're just hateful. They're just too far right. Like, they tried to frame it as like the good guys versus the bad guys. And they smeared and slandered and basically just, tried to blacklist in many ways, directly or indirectly, anybody who noticed that the Republican Party was passing hate speech laws. So when they call people anti-Semitic and they call people far right, I mean, some people are assholes, and, an asshole is an asshole. I just call them what they are. But really what it is a PR effort to make you think that everyone's crazy and insane that notices these laws, because there's a huge global effort to push these laws into legislation and to turn America into Europe, where now every little bit of your speech is policed, and noticing that certain people own media companies is a act of anti-Semitism, which according to Bobby Kennedy is now a HHS plague that he needs to, be a part of. Here's Donald Trump breaking his own speech law. You're not allowed to say American citizens who happen to be Jewish have dual loyalty to Israel. That's one of the speech laws. You're not allowed to say any single person of that ethnicity. They have a blanket shield where it's like, you can't suggest any of them have dual loyalty to Israel. Yet here's Donald Trump at the time saying that his biggest donors asked him for more favors than any other group of people, and that his biggest donors were asking him to do things for Israel. So even though Trump is likely telling the truth, this is actually by definition, by IHRA definition, this is anti-Semitism, which is why the press called Trump anti-Semitic so many times. Even though he's pro-Israel and he does a lot for Israel, he constantly breaks his own hate speech phrases that he passes into law. So does DeSantis. They all do. They just don't notice or don't seem to care, kind of like Bobby. They just keep acting like puppets. Here's Trump breaking the anti-Semitism rule. So I condemn this. This is against his own rules.
Just as I promised, I recognized Israel's eternal capital and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. Jerusalem became the capital. I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Miriam and Sheldon would come into the White House probably almost more than anybody outside of people that work there. And they were always after, and as soon as I'd give them something, always for Israel. As soon as I'd give them something, they'd want something else. I'd say, give me a couple of weeks, will you please? But I gave them the Golan Heights, and they never even asked for it. For 72 years, they've been trying to do the Golan Heights, right? And even Sheldon didn't have the nerve. But I said, you know what? I said to David Friedman, give me a quick lesson, like 5 minutes or less on the Golan Heights. And he did. And I said, let's do it. We got it done in about 15 minutes, right?
So Trump said they used to come to his office more than anyone and ask for things done for Israel, right? That's anti-Semitism to say that, because you're not supposed to say that any American citizen has loyalty to Israel, even though obviously it's true. Not everybody does, but some do. But you can't say it now because it's a hate speech phrase that they're passing as a working definition of anti-Semitism. And then they're going to say that that word that they passed into definition that Trump constantly violates, that DeSantis constantly violates, Tom Cotton violates, all the people pushing it violate their own hate rules. And then they say that hate is a deadly plague. Words are a deadly plague. Thoughts are a deadly plague. A definition of hate that says that you can't say that people who own media companies, or people that want you to do things for foreign countries, you can't say that. Now that's a plague of hate. If speech policing doesn't, I'm going to end on this because there's other things I want to talk about. If speech policing doesn't work, Republicans say it all the time. We don't police speech for racism because, one, it gets exaggerated about, but also policing speech doesn't stop hate. It only creates more. Policing speech doesn't stop, any of that. That's what people say. But the same people saying that then say that anti-Semitism is different. It's not working. That all these speech rules are not working. They're not working every year. I mean, you listen to certain groups and they're like, the hate is rising. The hate is rising on Twitter. Like, Twitter is like a new platform now where everybody is like annoyed at this because Elon allowed for some sort of element of free speech. And when you get free speech, people have real conversations. And when people have real conversations, now the people pushing the speech laws are wildly unpopular. And the people that oppose them are just getting more annoyed. I would never justify any amount of hate or any evil thing in this world, but I'm just being realistic. It's like the First Amendment exists for a reason. It's not, you don't put special carve-outs for one group of people to say that you can't talk about the history of who killed Jesus. Like, that's not America. And if you push speech laws, just like if the left push racism speech laws, they put end racism on the field goals in NFL or whatever. It's like all these things 15 years later, and then they'll say, well, racism's at an all-time high. Then maybe your strategy is not working. I don't believe that it is, but you understand what I'm saying? These things don't work. But if you know that these things don't work, why do so many people allow Bobby Kennedy and Trump and DeSantis and the whole GOP party to keep passing them over and over and over and over again? It's just creating more dissent and more distrust. It's ridiculous. I could talk about this for a long time. I've known about it for a long time. It's basically the part that most people don't know, because 95% of Republican media does not talk about this honestly. And if anyone does talk about it honestly, they are not allowed to be in the sphere. Similar to how when Elon Musk was having Twitter attacked, basically, they said he was being anti-Semitic in order to try to strong arm his advertisers. That was the big thing they were accusing Elon and Twitter of, anti-Semitism. That will get you. Look at Thomas Massie. He's one of the only honorable congressmen, and left and right-wing Jewish organizations are trying to stop him from being senator. The Republican Jewish Coalition has already pledged to use unlimited money, resources to stop him from being senator. Why? He's one of the only good congressmen who actually serves America, because this is just the reality of the situation. Like, who do you think donates to Charlie Kirk? Who do you think gives him millions upon millions of dollars and then turns him into like a perfect little puppet with a giant forehead? And then he's like, we're greatest ally, greatest ally. Yeah. Do you think he really thinks that stuff? I guarantee you had a few drinks with Charlie Kirk. He knows everything that I know. He would say everything that I say. He would be like, you're right. But he can't. He's a puppet. He takes millions upon millions of dollars with people who have loyalty to another country, and then he has to act stupid about certain topics, or else he can't exist in that world. He knows who is really running the show, but you can't say these things. But everybody knows what I'm saying. It's not the entirety of everything. I'm not blaming anybody. It's just the reality of the situation. Who gives Trump's hundreds of millions of dollars? What do they want? It's just all obvious. So, on that note, I want to say this too. When it comes to foreign policy and what people think of Israel or don't think of Israel, to me, it shouldn't matter that much, because it's like, for example, I have friends that are really supportive of Israel. I have friends that are critical of Israel. Like, what someone thinks of Israel or Palestine or Russia or Ukraine to me, on a personal level, friend level, whatever, it's not a make or break. As long as people can act normal and not be like weird, it's just a conversation about what America should do in a complex issue. I don't mind it. But what I will say is, even with Bobby Kennedy, right? I don't trust politicians anymore, so I'm not even going to say I trusted him. But I did tell people that even though I have no expectations for politicians because they always disappoint, I said I have moderate expectations for Bobby Kennedy because I know he knows so much about the Food and Drug Administration. And there were a lot of people that the last couple of months gave me and many other people a lot of flack. And they said, Bobby Kennedy is a Zionist. Bobby Kennedy, look what he said on Dave Smith's, like, look what he does. And I said to them, you know, I want to see what he does. I want to give him a chance because he's not in a position to push foreign policy. Like, I don't specifically care what the HHS director's foreign policy is because he's so knowledgeable about the Food and Drug Administration. I don't care. But here's the thing. This is why people are so skeptical of Zionism and people in our government. It's not that they support Israel. It's that it seems like most people in our government that support Israel are so psychotically in support of Israel that they prioritize it over America. And within 2 weeks, Bobby Kennedy has already proven that. He's already proven those people right that said, I don't trust him because of this. And I said, listen, I'm not going to say I trust him, but I'm excited that he's in office because he's so knowledgeable about food and seed oils and vaccines. And it's exciting to have that as HHS director. He's not doing foreign policy, but somehow he uses the HHS position. One of his first statements was that he is saying that children should go get the MMR vaccine. All I'm saying is, if you do the research, Bobby Kennedy in the Reason, the Libertarian magazine, he said that he wouldn't give that vaccine to his own kids. I don't care what he does, but that's what he said. He wouldn't give it to his own kids. He doesn't give it to his own kids, yet he's going to tell millions of Americans to do it. He's just like, okay, what's the point of him even being there? If he's just going to be a puppet and say things he doesn't even believe, then he's just a meat suit. Okay, well, I'll give him a slight pass on that or whatever. It's like, I mean, I'm not going to say I give him a pass, but let's see what he does. Let's give him some more time. Within 24 hours, he puts out a statement and said that hate is like racism for one group and racism is a plague that's killing people and that it needs to be like, it's like, dude, this is why people don't trust Zionist first politicians. It's because they somehow make everything about that. We need to police speech. Well, we're not policing speech, but we need to police speech. But one type of hate, but it's not hate. It's like, dude, just do your freaking job. Everybody that didn't trust Bobby 2 weeks ago were right. You know, I might not agree with their methods or their timing, but you know, people like Shiva and whatever her name, I'm trying to think of the other chick's name that I talked about one time, Peggy Hall. I was like, you know, we're different people. I told people she has the right to say whatever she wants and do whatever reporting she wants at the time. I personally, for me, I was like, I just don't, it's not the right time for me to do it right now as he's getting confirmed. I'd rather see what he does. I waited. I saw what he did. You know, Peggy Hall was right. I think, you know, it's just like, I just wanted to give him a couple weeks to see what he did, but he proved her right. He proved people like Dr. Shiva right. Although their approach is different to mine and how they talk about it is different to mine because they're different people. It's like, they didn't want to give him a foot. They didn't want to give him a yard. They didn't want to give him any room. I was willing to give him room. With the little bit of room I gave Bobby Kennedy, he's already disappointed me and gone under my expectations, which were pretty moderate. He somehow found my bar that was almost on the ground and slithered under my bar by not being. And this is like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, regardless of my foreign policy, if I'm at HHS, you shouldn't have to think about my foreign policy or what words I think are hateful or how I think one hate is bigger than others and it's a plague and, you know, people's thoughts and hate are hurting people. Like, that you shouldn't have to think about that when I'm at an HHS director. But that's why everybody says what they say. They're not being hateful. Maybe some people are, but it's like this is how American government works. One country gets foreign aid, you're anti-Semitic if you notice. One country gets speech laws, you're anti-Semitic if you notice. One group of people funds both sides of politics, but it's anti-Semitism to talk about. Trump's biggest donor donates to him and has him do stuff for a foreign country, so much so that when a foreign spy, one of the top 5 foreign spy of American history that damaged America, gets sent home to the country he spied for, he goes home on Trump's donor's jet. He went home on Trump's donor's jet. But if you point it out, it's anti-Semitism. So Bobby Kennedy can't even do HHS without declaring anti-Semitism a public health crisis, as if it's not fentanyl and opioids. It's just that. And all I'm saying is hate. Hate is bad, and evil is bad no matter which way it goes. There was a guy who killed a Palestinian kid because he was so ramped up on like psychotic right-wing podcasts. You know what I'm saying? That are like, they're everywhere. He literally killed a Palestinian kid. Look it up. That's evil. I would call it both ways. It's evil if a Palestinian did this to this person. It's evil if an Israeli does this to this person. Like, evil is evil. Crime is crime. It's all disgusting to me. I know that there's a war and it's complex, but it's like, there's stories like that you'll never hear on Republican podcasts because they won't tell you, because they need you to not realize that like, does Bobby not want to put out a statement about that? Either stick to your lane or don't, or be fair. But if you only like, it's just too much. And with that being said, when it comes to the whole protest thing that they're pushing, Trump is trying to leverage universities to basically say, I'm going to cut your federal funding if you don't shut down these illegal protests. Here's my only issue with that. A protest is not illegal if it's a protest that follows the law. If it's an illegal protest, it's not a protest, right? If any protest breaks any sort of law, it's illegal. If that's the case, why do they need special laws for one race, one religion, and one foreign country to police an illegal protest? It's either illegal for everybody or it's not. So if Trump really cared, he'd say, if any protest breaks the law in any sort of way, I'm going to cut federal funding, whether it's a protest against Israel, whether it's a protest against Trump, whether it's a protest against Republicans or Christianity, like whatever their protest, because Democrats will protest about a lot of things. It'll be Brett Kavanaugh one day. Now it's going to be abortion. Why not pass a law that says any illegal protest isn't a protest? It's now an illegal riot or some sort of crime. And if you don't crack down on crimes, maybe you could just send the police in. It's a crime. It shouldn't matter what the university does because the police can show up. Once it escalates to a crime, there's nothing that, like, you understand, Republicans are being very sneaky about this, and they're trying to convince you, oh, we're just doing it when a protest breaks the law. Then why not pass a bill that says that for everything? Because the entire America is like a planet that revolves around one race, one religion, and one country. And the second that you notice how it works, and the second that you notice who's getting war reparations still from Kathy Hochul and around the world, as soon as Republicans say they're against that, but they won't mention that because then they'll get in trouble and lose all their funding. And then if you say they lost all their funding, they'll say it's hate speech. It's like, that's the way everything works. Bobby Kennedy, he's just digging a deeper hole for himself and everybody else that talks about this sort of stuff. It's like, why do you talk about it all the time? Because no one seems to be able to do their job without doing that. Elise Stefanik has an F rating, an F for conservative, liberty-based values. Thomas Massey has an A. Anna Paulina Luna, to her credit, has an A. Marjorie Taylor Greene has an A. There's other people that have A's or B's. Elise Stefanik has an F, right? For America, for you, F. For Israel, 100%, A plus. Unconditional. Doesn't want any conditions on the money she just funnels to them. What? Here's my issue. Why is an American Republican have an F rating for me and an A plus for a foreign country? And why do politicians like that constantly get elevated? Why do they get rewarded for that? Like, you would think they would pick somebody else that's pro-Israel for that position and be like, Elise Stefanik sucks. Maybe it's a way to get her out of Congress. That's all she's good at. Go send her to do that because she's not good at serving America. Maybe. But it's like, I just noticed that a lot of politicians keep getting rewarded about this. And a flight is not a crime. However, RFK Jr. has flown on Epstein's jet. And I've always ignored it because it's like, flying on a jet doesn't matter. But when you fly on Epstein's jet and you act like somebody who flew on Epstein's jet, it's a lot more questionable than if you're just doing the right thing. Make America Healthy Again voted for Trump for you to look into the opioid crisis, the fentanyl crisis, the pharmaceutical crisis, take all these, non-over-the-counter drugs off of television advertisements like every other country besides New Zealand. Look at seed oils, the health of our country, the fact that everybody's obese, the fact that, chronic illnesses have gone up. This is true for every race, religion, and gender. This unites us. This is who Bobby Kennedy has always been. I don't care if he doesn't talk about topics. I don't care if he never mentions things that I want him to mention. Just do your job. That's what you got voted for. You can mention stuff, but if you're going to mention other stuff, tell the truth. Don't use your health agency to declare thoughts and speech and what the government classifies as hate, which is defined, not what people think it is, as a plague that's hurting people. This is like saying Racism kills people, and Trump is a racist because he wants to close the border, and him closing the border kills people. Do you realize how big of an exaggeration that is? Now they're saying words and thought is hate, and hate it kills people. That's what the Democrats do. We can't police hate, or we can't stop hate without doing that and using a health agency to try to declare war on a I would say it's a moving goalpost, but it's really not a moving goalpost. It's the IHRA definition that they're passing all over the world. I like to be patient. I like to be thoughtful. I try to treat others the way that I want to be treated. And, I gave Bobby Kennedy a lot more leeway than a lot of other people have. And a lot of people have not liked me for it. And they have every right to not like me or trust me. I don't really care. I'm not out here demanding people's trust. I want to earn trust by doing a good job. With that being said, I gave Bobby Kennedy more time than others. I gave him more respect than others. I gave him more appreciation. And within 2 weeks, he's flopped on two massive, massive, massive issues, or I wouldn't even say flop, just inserted it into his job. I don't trust Bobby Kennedy anymore. I don't like Bobby Kennedy anymore. I despise Bobby Kennedy. And, I gave him, just like with Trump and others, I give him every benefit of the doubt. He's a fraud. He's a liar. And, the people that didn't give him a chance, although I disagree with the timing of it on a personal level, they were right. And he's going to lose a lot of support, and his Instagram and his social media is going to go from 99% of people liking him to 55% of people calling him out, because we're not stupid. We're not peasants. We know what's going on in this country. Everybody's starting to figure it out. And social media is our way to peacefully and legally disagree with what you're doing. So, here's the clip again of the guy who flew on Epstein's jet twice, trying to pretend like he doesn't see influence from a country, even if he supports that country. It's like, say you support, I don't know. It's hard to even compare, because Israel, like Ukraine or whatever, it's like you don't see any leverage.
Do you have concerns about the level of Israeli influence in our politics here in the United States of America?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a politician in political office, so I don't see much of that.
Yeah, but now you are a politician in political office, and within a couple of weeks, you're now declaring basically criticism of Israel a plague that hurts people, while the government is policing speech and protest for them. And also, Donald Trump sent a spy from that country back home on Trump's biggest donor's jet 4 years ago. But you don't see that, right? You see everything else. He knows everything. Knows everything about Ukraine, knows everything about Russia, knows everything about America, knows everything about politics. But just that topic, he just doesn't know, and he doesn't see it. He doesn't see it because he is it. And in order to see it, Bobby would have to look in the mirror, something that probably he's too ashamed to even do at this point. So God bless Bobby Kennedy. Good luck, my guy. You've lost all support from me. So good luck with whatever you're trying to do there. But I set a low bar and you slithered under it. Speaking of low bars and slithering and other stories, somebody said I posted something about the Epstein files on my Facebook page, and some lady was like, "You seem obsessed with this topic." Yeah, do I? I mean, I probably posted about it less than 10 times or 15 times in the last year, but I guess I'm obsessed about it. It's like, I wonder why I care about that topic, because somebody that was doing some sort of sexual blackmail or whatever, everybody knows what Epstein was doing to some extent. Maybe everybody doesn't know exactly what he was doing, but we all know that Epstein is so crucial to the full story of what's going on in America. We live in a country that has hated itself for years, decades, exporting degeneracy and the dumbest thing through USAID and other organizations for decades. We've basically destroyed ourselves and been destroying the Western world and other countries for decades. Inflation is really bad now. Most people think the country is worse than it was 20, 30 years ago. I don't want to sit here. The border was open. I'm not blaming Epstein for all that. I'm just saying, we live in a country that has been an upside down world for 30 years now. And it's so upside down that it's almost laughable. It's like, how did it get to this point, right? There's a lot of ways it got to this point. But one thing that seems really crucial to the story through the 90s and 2000s and 2010s, where America really took a turn, was what was Jeffrey Epstein doing? Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Elon Musk. I forgot to include this in my last video about him because I just got so much information. But he gave a girlfriend, or he set up Elon Musk's brother with a girlfriend. I'm not saying Elon Musk is complicit because of that, but it's like Jeffrey Epstein was connected to everybody and was trying to get everybody. For what? Why was he doing it, and what happened? When he got arrested and sent to jail or whatever, the cameras malfunctioned, so they said. The guards were asleep, and he got disappeared. Something happened. At that point, that's really showing you how crucial that story is. Trump's in office, right? He's the outsider. Jeffrey Epstein gets disappeared on his watch. Did Trump or the GOP or Florida or anybody, Florida let him off the hook, but it's like, did anybody really launch a criminal investigation? Because literally no one thinks, I don't care what you think about Jeffrey Epstein, nobody thinks that the guards just fell asleep and the cameras didn't work. Nobody thinks that. Like, you're an idiot if you think that's all that happened. Like, it just was the most spontaneous coincidence of all time that had happened. It just was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. He's so powerful and he's so connected that somehow that was allowed to happen, and somebody with power allowed that to happen. So the reason I'm quote unquote obsessed with the story is because this, like, if say you're a detective and you're like, why is America so messed up? Why is the left so crazy? Why is the right so fraudulent? Why have we been doing all this stuff all around the world to our own people? Like, we're screwing over our own people. We screwed over our own border. We screwed over our own economy. We've given the pharmaceutical industry too much power. The whole Western world is influenced by us, and we're making them worse, even though I'm saying we're a great country, but it's like we've been disastrous over the last 30 years. Why? This is like the biggest clue. It's not to say it's every reason, because it's not, but it's like, this is the biggest clue in the world, and they just threw out the evidence. Don't look there. He just disappeared. That's why, because, like, you can't understand what's going on without at least this part of the picture. And that's why I care about it, right? And if they did that during Trump's first term, I really have no trust in Pam Bondi, who was there in Florida after the Epstein situation, could have looked back into it, didn't. Alex Acosta let him off the hook. Trump gave him a position. Trump hires everybody who helped Epstein, essentially. Alan Dershowitz being one. He's a darling of Trump in the, the media. When Trump signed the anti-Semitism executive order in 2019, Alan Dershowitz was in the room. But he wrote a book about it, saying that he's not guilty. I'm not saying he's guilty. I'm just saying it's like everybody around Epstein just mysteriously gets hired by Trump. And maybe that's just a coincidence and everybody around him is not. Whatever. I'm just saying. I noticed that. With that being said, you look at the Andrew Tate situation, and here's two things I want to say before I actually say my opinion. I didn't realize until like a couple months ago that people were like, I don't care if you like Andrew Tate, you think he's funny, you hate him, you think like the vitriol over Andrew Tate is so severe that I've noticed that people, like, it's a lot of women, to be honest, but also like some men too. They lash out at people that even remotely like him. Like, let's just say you're not that familiar with everything Andrew Tate's done and you just think he's funny. Outside of what you think of it, it's like he is funny. He's an interesting guy. He's like John McAfee. John McAfee was crazy, but he's an interesting person. He's like the Dos Equis man. Like, what the heck's John McAfee doing? I'm not co-signing everything he's ever done. You can't lie and say John McAfee's not an interesting character. Andrew Tate is an interesting person. So here's my first issue, and then I'm going to get into more things. Even if you hate Andrew Tate and you think he's guilty and you think he's the worst person in the world, you can't lash out at people that like remotely think he's interesting. Like, you just look crazy. It's like, you have to hate him as much as it's like, dude, I had no idea people were this like serious about their hate of Andrew Tate. I'm not asking you to be a big fan. I'm not asking you to like ignore what he's done, but it's like, you can't. It would be like saying like, you don't understand why people think Theo Vaughn's funny or something. It's like, you don't, or like Louis C.K. can never be funny because he did something weird. It's like, Louis C.K. is funny. With that being said, the Epstein files is the big story, right? Even if Andrew Tate did the worst thing you can imagine, I mean, obviously that is a story, and I'm not saying it has no place in America or in courts if there is a real connection, but it's just like the Epstein thing has way more precedence over reality and what's going wrong in America and how our politicians are compromised. And the day that the Epstein files were dropped or released and, mysteriously not complete, and Pam Bondi gave them binders or whatever, that's the day that Andrew Tate came to America, or he came the day before, and then it became a story the next day. Within 24 hours, these two things dropped. I'm not suggesting anything because I don't really know what to think about it, but it is a little bit weird to me that a lot of Republicans that are completely just, they are really mad at Andrew Tate, right? They're like, he's a human trafficker. He's a human trafficker. Is it not weird to you that Epstein was the obvious human trafficker in it? That's the big one. And now they got a bunch of angry, unhinged, Republican women and guys being talking about Andrew Tate doing the same thing because he just landed in America. I just find the timing of that very weird. I'm not saying Andrew Tate's in on it. I'm not saying Andrew Tate's not a real person. It could be entirely coincidental, but I just have a hard time thinking anything's a coincidence. So it's just they've somehow gotten millions of Republicans to be more mad at Andrew Tate and calling him a human trafficker than actually being mad at the Epstein files not being dropped, who was obviously a human trafficker, who obviously compromised many politicians and people and is part of the reason we live in the country we live in. How is that not the major story? But people are really upset at Andrew Tate. So now that kind of takes precedence over it in a lot of ways. Another thing I'll say before I get into what I think about it, because these are just principled things that need to be talked about beforehand. When people say, I can't believe Patrick Bet-David platformed Andrew Tate. I can't believe Candace Owens platformed Andrew Tate. I can't believe they platformed Andrew Tate. Any person should be given an interview. You can't cut off media access. Even if he was actually guilty of the worst crime, he still should be platformed by media companies because that's the First Amendment. And no matter what you did, you should be able to talk to the public and you should be able to get questioned. Anybody who says that Andrew Tate should not be platformed by Candace Owens or Patrick Bet-David are not honest people, because they're basically trying to say he doesn't deserve a right to speak and nobody deserves a right to interview him or hear from him. So you want to charge him of a crime that he hasn't been found guilty of yet, and you don't want to allow him to speak for yourself, and you think that you're the good guy in the situation. Even if you think he's guilty of the crime you think he committed, you have to allow him to go through a court process, and you have to allow him to have an interview. If you're cutting off his interviews, saying no one should platform him, and then saying he's guilty of a crime he hasn't been charged guilty with, you're kind of a psychopath. So it's there's so many people in Republican media that don't understand that angle of it is more important, not more important, but it's just it's such, I can't help but notice this. It's what you should be saying to Patrick or Candace, if you're not a fan of the interview, is Patrick should have asked better journalistic questions. Patrick should have challenged him more. Candace should challenge him more. That makes sense. Not they shouldn't platform him. Everyone should be allowed to be platformed and debated, or at least have a conversation. That's journalism. It's not oh, Julian Assange got arrested. Don't platform him. Don't allow him to speak. That's not how things work. With that being said, I didn't watch the whole interview. I watched parts. Yeah, there could have been more pushback and there could have been better questions asked. And, there's certain things that Andrew said that were slightly wrong that, nobody in Patrick's team seemed to know. So they weren't able to do actual journalistic pushback. And I'm not saying everything he said was wrong, because a lot of things he said were obviously right and true. I think Andrew Tate's entertaining. I'm just going to get it out of the way. I think he's extremely entertaining. He's extremely interesting to listen to. I'm not a super fan. I don't listen to every one of his podcasts, but there are he just kind of free talk. So sometimes he makes little errors and nobody ever really corrects him, but it doesn't mean you should deplatform him. With that being said, DeSantis's attorney general charged him with a criminal investigation upon landing. I do not agree with that. This is going to bother some people. I think he went in a court in Romania. They really did not allow him to travel for a long time. They looked into a lot of stuff. They really tried to find a crime on him, and they couldn't do it. And then he finally flew to America when they gave him the green light. And then on arriving, DeSantis looked into a criminal investigation into Andrew Tate. Did they relaunch an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein? Did they look into anybody who let Jeffrey Epstein off the hook? Are they even remotely interested in finding out more about Jeffrey Epstein? In my humble opinion, no, because DeSantis works for the people that Epstein probably worked for. DeSantis passes speech laws for the people that Epstein probably worked for. Oh, Anomaly, you don't understand. DeSantis, he wasn't there when they let Epstein off the hook. Yeah, but at the same time, now that he is there, he doesn't seem that interested in looking into it. And also, he passes speech laws that stop you from talking about the Epstein situation. If Epstein were around and Epstein were doing what he does, and you notice that Epstein may or may not be working for a foreign country, that is anti-Semitism. If Jeffrey Epstein were around and you were to be like, is he working with multiple governments, or does he have loyalty to this country, or is he blackmailing politicians? Like, that's anti-Semitism, because Jeffrey Epstein happens to be the protected ethnicity that cannot be questioned. And you certainly can't say that he's working with other countries, even though now there's news articles that say that he was, and his exes say that he bragged about working for foreign countries. But, DeSantis is basically passing hate speech laws that say that it's anti-Semitism to be able to have conversations about that. So, DeSantis is working for the people that Epstein most likely, not definitely, but most likely worked for. Yet he's going to launch a criminal investigation into Andrew Tate, or his AG is. Do I think he's doing it because Andrew Tate likes Trump? I don't think so necessarily. I don't think it's because he likes Trump. Could it be his foreign policy and how outspoken Andrew Tate is? Possibly. Could it be the fact that Andrew Tate is kind of a questionable character in some extent, and he said a lot of stupid stuff? Absolutely. Like as somebody that thinks he's entertaining, I've seen him say certain things on camera, and I'm like, why would you say that? Why? Like, he's definitely played this role of like edgy guy who is proud of doing really immoral stuff. He ran a webcam business, and he said that, there's a few other things, but I'm just going to start with one of them. He ran a cam model webcam business where he had girls basically, do pornography to some extent. And then he would take the keyboard, he used to say, and he would trick guys into giving them lots of money. Personally, I don't think it's smart to like publicly say that you were doing that. It's probably a bad idea. With that being said, like, that's how most of the industry works. Like, if people are on OnlyFans and talking to people like, oh my gosh, this girl really loves me, it's probably a chatbot AI or some dude that like runs a consulting company that's talking to you. Like, the actual chicks, like, most of the time, some of them probably do, but that seems to be the industry where that's what's going on. So it's like Andrew Tate is not the only person doing this. He's just the only one probably dumb enough to say it publicly and admit to doing it on camera, because it may or may, I don't know the legality of that. It's probably not illegal, but it is kind of like you're pretending to be someone else to get money out of someone. It's not ethical, and it's definitely flirting on the lines of what is allowed and what is not. So it's really dumb to, in my opinion, like, admit this on podcast. And that's what he did, in the manosphere. All these guys sort of like say a lot of stuff that's like really wild, and that's what people like about them. With that being said, it's like, there's a lot of angles of this that I want to get to before some of the more serious accusations. But it's like with women, it's just like they like guys to provide. They like successful guys. And then it's like you have guys that are super successful, and then people are like, oh my gosh, they're treating women this way and that way. Have you ever been and I'm not saying like I'm trying to be as respectful as I can to women, but it's like, have you ever been the really, really, really nice guy that just does all the nice and right things to women? They don't like you. They don't like pushovers. They don't like weak men. Women tend to act like cats sometimes. I'm not saying they are cats, but it's like they like a push and a pull. They don't like somebody that's obsessed with them, unless you're married. Maybe then they do. But it's, there needs to be some sort of game where it's like, if you're too interested in a girl, she's not interested. The second you lose interest, she's interested. That, there's a dynamic to the male and female relationship that is a little wild. So it's like, I'm not really that into the manosphere content, but a lot of them, they say really crazy stuff, or like, you should do this to women, you should do that, you should do this. And it's like, do they really do that? I have no idea, but it's like some women actually like that stuff. And that's like, that's all they're interested in. So, some people are playing a really weird game with it. With that being said, the accusations against him of like the trafficking and this and that, I think Romania, I guess, had a right to look into it, but I just find it really unnecessary that personally, that DeSantis's AG is going to push it even further, because I feel like they're kind of overstepping and exaggerating and trying to just take things that they've said and make it into the biggest crime possible, essentially. Like, I get my thoughts is like, if, you know, a lot of the things that they're going to say that he did that was like taking advantage of women, I guarantee you that half the Republicans in Florida have done some extent to that, or that's how they've dealt with women. Like, I don't know. It's like, if you can prove that he was literally doing really, really illegal, horrific, terrible things, then that's what it is. You know, that's for the courts to decide. I'm not Andrew Tate. I'm not going to sit and justify everything he's done, because I wouldn't do that. I'm not that person. I didn't say the things he said on camera. So I don't want this to be a defense of him, because I'm not his lawyer, and it's not me. I don't have to do this because he gets the pros and cons to the life he's lived, right? There's a lot of pros to it. There's a lot of cons. With that being said, I just think DeSantis's government, they could probably find a lot of Republicans and Democrats that did a lot of messed up stuff and more messed up stuff with more consequences connected to Epstein, but they don't seem that interested in looking into it. I think that Andrew Tate has just become a symbol for the Ben Shapiro right wing to hate, because I don't know. It's just like this like side conversation that's happening now where people are like, you like Andrew Tate? You hate Andrew Tate? It's like, I don't care. Like, people that obsess over Andrew Tate too much kind of weird me out. And people that hate him too much also weird me out. Like, I don't really care that much. I think he's entertaining on podcasts. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. I've seen, you know, he's lived a wild life, and he's paying the consequences of that. But I think that they're kind of overstating it, and they're pushing a little bit too hard, personally. But, you know, when you run a webcam business, when you're like flying chicks in from around the world to like do cam modeling stuff, you know, that's definitely flirting on the lines of like, it's not a good business. And it's going to probably, if not directly get you in legal trouble, it's probably just going to get you in emotional trouble, because it's just like a crazy thing to do. So, you know, I don't really know, but I care more about the Epstein stuff than the Tate stuff personally. And I find that everybody that's obsessed, like, this is just a pattern I notice. Not everybody, because there's a little bit of mixture, but like everybody on the right that is like obsessed with calling Tate a human trafficker and obsessed with trying to get him in jail and obsessed with telling people not to talk about him, they all seem to have something in common, and they seem mysteriously just not that concerned with the fact that the GOP is basically doing work for Epstein and just like nonstop passing speech laws that would prevent somebody from questioning somebody like an Epstein if they were around doing what they're doing today. So I find that, you know, an obvious pattern. Someone said it would be shocking if they didn't find anything to convict him on. I don't know. I don't know what's more likely. I would say that it's like 50-50. I feel like I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know. Like, if you're running a webcam modeling business and you're flying women in to do that, is that illegal? Probably not, but they're on camera being like, we're tricking these women, we're tricking them into liking us and loving us. It's like, I don't know that that's a crime, but it's just not, you know, that type of life's going to get you into trouble. Like, if you're going to fly women to do webcam modeling, but then you're going to brag about tricking them and like just trying to make you love them to do it. I don't know. You know, that's it, like that type of life is always going to get you into trouble at some point. So I'm not sitting here defending everything he's ever done. I'm just calling it like I see it. And I do think that he's really interesting to listen to, and he does say a lot of real stuff. But, you know, I'm a grown man. I don't look up to podcasters. Like, I need to follow somebody. Like, he's an interesting character, and you know, I take from it what I need to. I like certain things he says. I disagree with some things, and then I just keep it moving. Like, he talks about, you know, having a bunch of babies with different women too, which I think is interesting. He's like, real men have a bunch of babies with different women, like Elon Musk. On one hand, I get what he's saying. It's like a conqueror will have a lot of kids, but at the same time, if you're a conqueror, like, your kids are never going to turn out the same way they would if you were a father that were in their life all the time. So there's pros to having a lot of babies, but then there's cons to having a lot of babies with different women. You know, it's like, it's like, I don't know. I just think he's definitely says a lot of stuff that piss people off. I just don't get that mad at what he's saying. I'm an adult. I'm like, I get what you're saying, but me personally, I would rather have, you know, a lot of kids with one woman. That would be my ideal goal. Someone said you're defending. I'm not defending him. I'm saying what I'm thinking. Like this is a topic you can't even talk about because people spurg out. They like literally lose their minds over this guy. It's like I'm saying what I said. I don't need to defend him. I'm not his lawyer. I didn't live his life. I'm just telling you both sides of the story and what I think. I mean, I don't know. If you want to spend the next year of your life just spurging out over Andrew Tate, you can do that. I'm not. I think the Epstein story is a lot more interesting. But this one is a precedent too. It's like, let's see what they actually do and what they don't do. The Andrew Tate case is going to set a precedent of some sort too. I guess I just can't. I don't even like to talk about this because people freak out. Like, I think Andrew Tate's funny. I think he's entertaining. I think he's interesting. I think he makes a lot of good points. And then he makes a lot of points I disagree with. And he lived a life that I didn't live. So I don't have to justify his life because it's not my life. Why would I have to take all the arrows of another man who made a lot of money and did a lot of stuff doing things that I ethically wouldn't do? I'm not taking the arrows for that, but I'm also not going to throw him under the bus and say, he's guilty, throw him in jail and don't give him an interview. It's like, that's insane. That's absolutely nuts. Candace Owens and Patrick Bet-David have every right to interview him. I just think that they could probably, have a little more questions to ask, or at least play devil's advocate a little bit. But I don't know. I haven't really even, to be honest, I haven't even listened to the whole Patrick Bet-David podcast, but he has every right to interview Andrew Tate. Like, you want these people to speak, even if you don't like them, let them speak, let them say things publicly. Like, you can't cut off someone's First Amendment because you hate them. Like, that's not how it works. If you hate Andrew Tate, you should want him to speak for 2 hours because then he says more stuff. I don't hate him. Sorry. I don't. I know people want me to. I think he's funny. But I'm not a judge. I'm not his lawyer. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not a business partner of his. I just think he's funny because he is actually funny. But some people like different humor. And I'm not saying people that oppose him are all unhinged. I'm just saying a lot of the people that do are unhinged. Like, it reminds me of when I told a liberal, like, I like Trump. They freak out at me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm like, I think Trump's funny, they're like, like, those vibes are weird to me. If you just casually are like, yo, I don't like Andrew Tate, I think he's guilty, but I want him to get a fair day in court to prove that. That makes more sense than just act like saying he's guilty of crimes he's just been accused of and then not wanting him to be platformed and then also freaking out at anybody that likes him. That's the weird part to me, not the people that disagree with him. I don't know. I just feel like a bunch of people are making it like they're like spurging out over Andrew Tate. I can't really like put a finger on it, but it's just like something instinctually is just a little bizarre to me. But what a desperate thing to say, bro. I don't get, like, if you want to freak out over it over the next year, that's fine. I think the Epstein story is more interesting. I think this is going to provide almost as a cover in a way to divide the right basically into like just spurging out over Andrew Tate and not getting to the Epstein stuff. Stephen Campbell says, I get what you're saying, man. Nothing wrong with getting interesting information wherever and whoever it comes from. People out there trying to gatekeep humor and information are silly. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate not exaggerating about what I'm saying and just getting to the point of it. Someone said, how did Epstein get white hair and write a book after he supposedly died? Did he? I'd never heard that he wrote a book. I know he had a bank transfer after he died or something, but I mean, I have opinions about that, but it doesn't matter. What's up with Tate? Tate landed in America because he, Romania tried really hard to find stuff on him. They couldn't, anything that held up in court. So then he was allowed to come back to America. And as soon as he landed, DeSantis's attorney general opened up a criminal investigation on him. Did they, in New York, did they open a criminal investigation, or did anyone in the Trump administration even try to do anything to figure out how the cameras turned off and the guards fell asleep with Epstein? They don't care. And I don't know. That's enough about that. Someone said, I don't think certain people like Tate. Well, Tate has been very honest about one topic that, obviously the GOP doesn't like. So, I mean, it could be that angle. It could not. He's one of those guys where he does so many things. His business model, I could tell because he's talked about it, and also I could just tell by what he's doing. It's a ballsy business model that gets you in the predicament he's in. I'm not talking even about his webcam business. That's obviously going to get you in predicaments, but I'm talking about His was like, I want to be famous. How do I get the most famous? So Andrew Tate, he went from zero to the most famous person in the world. And immediately after that happened, the criminal investigation launched into him. How come it didn't launch 5 or 10 years later? How come it was only when he got really famous and started telling men to stop being so pathetic and be stronger, et cetera? I'm not saying he's the best role model, but it's like he was getting really popular among the younger generation that was being bombarded with like LGBT stuff. So it's just like he purposely says things that piss people off to get really famous. Like, and then it works. Like, even reading some of the comments, I'm not asking you to say that you think he's something he's not. Think everything you think, but it's like he purposely did that to you. Like he's like Trump poking at you and you're like freaking out. He wants you to freak out to give him more attention. That was his whole business model. He says this, he says this, he says that. He says women shouldn't fly planes. You know, he says it very boldly and bluntly, where some people are going to be like, yeah, that's true. I agree with that. And other people are going to be like, what do you mean? My daughter flies a plane. Like, it's like he's purposely saying things that a lot of people agree with and a lot of people disagree with as bluntly and hilariously as possible in order to get grown men to like spurg out over him and act like women, and women to freak out like they freak out over Trump. Like that was his business model. So he probably knew that it was going to lead him to, you know, like when you piss off a lot of people or you do a lot of things, like he probably knew what he was getting into. So I don't. Someone said he got famous right after Kevin Samuels died. Yeah, I wasn't super familiar with Kevin Samuels, but I know he was that kind of like blunt guy as well. He was also a professional kickboxer. That's true. Someone said he teaches women how to be sex traffickers. You're entitled to your perspective. I don't, if you think that, sure. Someone said he's a low-level street pimp. Epstein ran an entire international complex of trafficking. Yeah, I mean, you know, with Tate too, it's like, I think for a guy, you know, this is one thing that marriage helps with too. It's like when you're married, you're not doing everything else because you're focused on that. It's just like, I think, you know, I don't really know how to say this without people getting mad because I'm trying to word it properly without coming across wrong. But like Epstein was doing multiple things, right? He was probably blackmailing, recording people. Like that's a whole different operation. If you're doing a webcam sex business, that's a different operation. Like there's a difference between the two and there's consequences between the two. But also it's one of these things where it's like, you know, I mean, Candace Owens did a whole piece on Harvey Weinstein. I haven't even seen it yet. But my thoughts on Harvey Weinstein are this. I mean, this is not going to help me out any, but like, I don't like Harvey Weinstein. He's a Democrat. He's always been a sneak. Like I'm not, obviously, like Harvey Weinstein's a weirdo. But what Candace is, I think, trying to say in her thing, and what, you know, I need to really watch it to know more. Some of these women, they did all these things with Harvey Weinstein for positions, and then they're like, "Yo, I can't believe he did that." And it's like, I do not like Harvey Weinstein. But what I'm saying is like, you know, you could have just not taken the movie role if he invited you over. Like one of the girls was like, he invited me and there was a shower and he like, dude, if a guy invited me to watch him shower or something, like, you understand what I'm saying? It's like, that's why, like, so many women in Hollywood are desperate for all these things. They want to do that stuff. They're going to do it anyway with somebody to get something out of them. Women like money, not all of them, but it's like, you don't want to exaggerate about the difference between a Jeffrey Epstein and someone else. Because when you say a man used his money and power to get women, a man used his power to get women, what's Harvey Weinstein supposed to use? His good looks? Is he supposed to use his good looks to get women? Of course, women like his power, and of course he leverages it. This is not justifying what he did. I'm just saying he looks disgusting. So it's like no woman's going to like him for his looks. Now, if he did things illegal, then it's illegal. But it's like if he's just using his money and power to impress, that's literally what women get impressed by. Like they date people at work all the time. They marry, like this is the reality of the world. I don't have to justify things other people do, but like if you want to exaggerate about the difference between an Epstein and somebody doing something else, you can do that. But it's like, this is not, you know, I don't know what you're going to accomplish or what the consequences of it are going to be. So, you know, if say you're dating somebody and you're not married yet, right? You're just dating or you like them and you fly them and you're like, oh, I want them to visit me. Is that human sex trafficking? Is that the same as what Jeffrey Epstein did? And I'm not saying that's what Andrew Tate did, because to be honest, I don't even fully listen to his podcast. I know he says a lot of stupid crap publicly that's like, could be incriminating. So I'm not going to justify everything Tate's ever done because he's lived a life I don't live. But it's like, what are you considering? What, is literal trafficking, or is it Harvey Weinstein being ugly and using money and power to make women like him? And why are the women doing it? And when I lived in LA, where were all these ethical women? I couldn't find them. All the women there want money. All the women there want power. All the women will give you no time of day if you can't give them something. They're looking for leverage. They're looking for opportunity. Los Angeles is a place where everybody wants to be a movie star. Everybody wants to be a musician, and they'll do anything they can to get it. Like when I was in my 20s, the women were not I got women. It's not like I got no chicks, but it's like a lot of the girls my age were interested in guys with money and with power. That's what they were interested in. They weren't interested in a 25-year-old, aspiring rapper who lived in a shitty apartment that probably had like mold in it. I was not that appealing. Like, yeah, they liked me enough to like think I was attractive and like give me a couple dates maybe, but at a certain point, like, why would they want me? I understand it now. It's like I had, maybe I had potential, but I was broke. I had no money and I lived in a shitty apartment. All the women want the guys with the money. All the women want the guys with the yacht. All the women, not in the world. I'm not saying the women watching my show do, but do you want a guy that's like impressive and can provide for you? Or do you want a guy that, can't even pay his own rent? Like I look back on my 20s and I was like, yeah, I was a terrible boyfriend because I was broke. I was a terrible boyfriend because I was young. I was immature. I was selfish. I didn't like know anything till I was 29 or 30. So it's like, just like with women who falsely accuse, you could put a guy in prison for life just for lying. So it's like there needs to be a fair, same with guys in divorce court. It's like guys get screwed in divorce court. So I'm just saying, like, there needs to be a real conversation about this sort of stuff, because it's like if somebody was doing horrific things, then that's one thing. But if an ugly Hollywood producer was using money and power to attract the women that are attracted to money and power and then pretend like they weren't 10 years ago, that's also a whole different conversation. Like, the chicks that you look at on Instagram that are super hot, like, you think they want just some random guy? No, they're probably going after guys with extraordinary amounts of money that don't care, that are willing to be, generous and don't care about that, like, money that much, or like some Saudi trillionaire that, what I'm saying? Like, is that trafficking? I don't know. You could consider it trafficking and try to charge them in court, but they have $1 trillion and money literally means nothing to them. So they just, pay for everything all the time. I don't, it's like that. And I don't, with the webcam business, I'm not that's not business I do, so it's not my thing. But where, like, what is that? What is the law if a man is behind the keyboard of a woman's sex cam? Is that illegal? I don't know. I don't need to justify these things because I don't do them. I'm just being an honest person having these conversations where it's like, you gotta, if people want to, and miraculously at the same exact time, these are both happening at the same time, the Tate thing and the Epstein thing. If you want to use the same terminology for him that you're using for Epstein, you can, if you want, if that's what you're going to do. But it's like, I kind of want to wait and see what happens first before I make these accusations. With Jeffrey Epstein, we're never going to see anything because they're going to sweep it all under the rug and they're going to put Andrew Tate in our faces. And then they're going to convince us that Andrew Tate is doing that. We'll see. But you understand what I'm saying? Someone said women want other women to be jealous of them. Duh. It's not a lifestyle I live, but if you look at like someone like a Dan Bilzerian was like, he said in his own words, I've listened to recent podcasts, he says he was a sex addict and all he did was like obsess over women and he had a lot of money, right? There were hot women that probably, no offense, but most guys watching this couldn't ever get to date them if they even wanted to, like 10 out of 10s. And 8 of them would line up and just want to have sex with him and demand his attention all the time. And all the guys I'm not going to say here, but it's like, they'll be like, oh, you're supposed to treat a woman this way or that way. They don't want you. Oh, you're supposed to do this and that one. They don't like that. You know what I'm saying? You could say that because you could never do that. And I'm not even saying you should want to do that, because it's not the most honorable thing to just have like 10 tens in a room with you trying to have sex with you. But it's like, this is what some of these women want, you know? So it's like, is it a crime that Dan Bilzerian was just being like a player? I don't know. It's literally what they wanted and what he wanted. I have no idea, but it's not mine. Someone said Tate was convincing women he loved them. Okay, so are you going to charge every woman who pretended like she loved a guy to steal his money? Like, that's happened probably like 1,000,000 times. A woman pretends she's in love, gets half a guy's money, and then divorces him and then leaves him for some hotter guy and takes his money. I heard of a story recently through somebody I know where a doctor was married to somebody. The wife divorced him, cheated on him, took half of his money, and then went with some younger, better looking guy. And then the doctor killed himself. This happened to somebody in not that I know, but like somebody in my circle that knows somebody. They said that his wife stole his money, ran off with a younger guy, and then the guy committed suicide because his life was in shambles and he could barely afford anything because his wife took everything. Is that a crime? I don't know that that's a crime. Probably 100 years ago it would have been a crime. But you understand what I'm saying? It's like, if you're going to say a guy who makes a girl fall in love with you is a crime, I'm not doing that sort of stuff. I'm not trying to make a woman fall in love with me so I can have her do that's not what I'm trying to do. So you have to understand the difference between me having a public conversation about this and defending it. I don't need to defend things that I'm not doing. However, it's like, are you going to then charge everybody who does that? Or are you just going to charge Andrew Tate in Florida? Like, what is the name of that crime? Making someone fall in love with someone to take advantage of them? Someone said he was on camera beating a woman. Is he going to be charged with that? Did he do it in Florida? I'm open to looking at the investigation, seeing what they find and seeing what they try to charge him on. I'm open for it, but it's like, I don't know. That's my opinion on it. Someone said, imagine if I'm not, you don't, this is why you can't talk about this topic, because nobody can listen to what I'm saying. I mean, some people are, but it's like, it becomes like, you're defending. I'm not defending that. I don't have to defend somebody who's beating a woman in public because I don't beat women. So it doesn't relate to me. I don't do that. I don't need to defend something that I don't do and wouldn't do. So this is my question about the people that are hating him so much that weirds me a little out. Why do you have to lie about what I'm saying in order to make your point with how much you don't like him? Don't you realize that no one's going to trust you if you're willing to lie about what I'm saying? I'm not defending that. I've never defended that. I'm not defending it now. I didn't defend it 10 minutes ago. This is why I don't trust the people that are spurging out over him, because they lie about everything in order to make their point. Why don't you start by telling the truth about this podcast before I trust you about anything else? I've never defended that. I never would defend that. I'm not defending it. I'm having a public conversation about something that is going to go to a court, and it's not going to be an open shut case like you think it is, because it's not that open shut. They're going to have trouble trying to find certain crimes on him and push it to the limit. It's like I've just noticed this pattern. Everyone that spurgs out over him, they just can't tell the truth about, like, they have to pretend like everyone who says anything is defending him. There was somebody that was like, you shouldn't platform him. So now if I say you're allowed to platform somebody, am I defending him because I think he should be allowed to speak on a podcast? Is that defending him? Like, these people can't stop lying. It's shocking. Someone said, I get you, folks are gaslighting. That trend is very common. You said I am defending him though. You're pathologically lying in the comment section and then expecting other people to believe you on other stuff. I'm not defending him. I don't need to defend him. I'm not defending him. I said multiple times that it's not worth defending because it's not something that I do. Like, I don't, it would be like me trying to like sit and like defend an OnlyFans CEO. Like, I'm defending, it's like, it's not my business. However, if something happens, I have the right to be honest about what I think about it. It's not a defense of their entire life and every single mistake they've ever made or every bad thing they've ever done. It's just an honest conversation. Like, the people that are doing this and gaslighting, it's like with Trump, they'll say, if you like Trump, you're a rapist. If you vote for Trump, you're a rapist. You're supporting rape if you support Trump. It's the same thing. It's the same dynamic. You could vote for Trump over Kamala and not believe every single thing or support every single accusation against him. And, you know, Trump has done some things that I think are highly suspicious, but it's like, I'm not defending everything he's ever done. And I'm not saying Trump did that, but it's like, he's been accused of that. There's been court cases. He's had to settle court cases over similar stuff. I'm not saying that he's guilty. I'm just saying it's like the Democrats that say that I'm defending everything Trump's ever done for preferring him over Kamala. You're spurging out and acting exactly like those people over Andrew Tate. You're leaving no room for, it's basically like, if you don't hate him as much as I do, and if you don't believe everything I believe about him, then you're defending him. You're a liar. So you're weird. You know, it's just like when I voted for Trump and people are like, I hate everything about you because you voted for him. Bro, if I don't vote, the election doesn't change. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not taking my vote that seriously. I don't care. You know, I either am inspired to vote or I'm not inspired to vote. But it's like people spurred out over me for that too. It's like, can you believe what you believe and not just isolate yourself from everybody that pretty much agrees with you because they're not as like pissed off as you? It's just a weird energy to it. Someone said most people understand you though. I think only a very small percentage of trolls are trolls. Normies. The fact that you don't seem super edgy attracts normies. Someone said Proverbs 18, a fool takes no pleasure in understanding, but only in expressing opinion. Yeah, I don't know. Someone said you enjoyed a vacation in Germany. That means you're a Nazi. I mean, that's pretty bad logic as well. I've never been to Germany, but I'm just saying, like, saying that to someone else. I mean, it's just, yeah, I don't know. Some people are just so emotional about it. This is what I've noticed. There's a few women that I really like that are really into like the Andrew Tate situation. Understandable. They all spurg out at anybody that doesn't like completely agree with them. They're all like spurging out. They can't just have their opinion and be like, let's wait a couple months. Let's see what the courts say. They're like, who's platforming him? Why are you platforming him? It's like, I get it. It's a very sensitive topic, but it's like, I don't know. People that are that emotionally invested. It's like with the Harvey Weinstein stuff. I haven't even watched Candace Owens' stuff. I said this 2 years ago where it's like, I'm not going to say I read it all, but I read into the Harvey Weinstein, some of the cases. I don't like Harvey Weinstein. I don't like him. His politics, I don't like him as a person. He worked with some of the worst politicians. I think he's probably highly untrustworthy. But when you're reading certain court cases, you're like, someone said that he invited them over the house and was showering. It's like, this is all weird. Like, Hollywood is already really weird. These are already immoral, unethical people that do all these things. But it's just like, I said this 2 years ago, if a record CEO was like, hey, I want to sign you to Universal, come over my hotel room at 2 a.m. Do you think I would do it? I would only do it if I was so desperate for a record deal that I'm willing to basically like do anything. Louis C.K., got accused of like, a woman's like, oh, I just wanted a career in comedy, and he invited me over at like 2 a.m. Why would you go over someone's house at 2 a.m.? Like, I'm not justifying everything they're doing, but it's like, why would you do that? You just think because you're not attracted to Louis C.K. that he's inviting you over at 2 a.m. to make you a famous comedian. Like, I'm sorry, but like, just because somebody is a person you don't like, it doesn't mean my brain goes out the window. It's like, that doesn't even make sense. It's like some chick tried to frame Aziz Ansari because she doesn't think he's hot. And she's like, I dated him for a week and then he went too far. But it's like, you liked him until you wanted the Aziz Ansari aura because he's Aziz Ansari, but you're not sexually attracted to him. So you just kind of like went along with it. It seems like, this is my interpretation of just reading the news articles where it's, I wish I could just sit and lie and just say, I think everyone's guilty all the time, but I just don't, it's not how I think. And the Bill Cosby case as well. I read the Bill Cosby case And I posted this on Instagram when it happened. I read pretty much, like, I spent hours reading into the Bill Cosby case because I found it interesting. I asked my Instagram audience, I said, who thinks Bill Cosby's innocent? Who thinks he's guilty? 87% said he was guilty. 13% said he was innocent. Then I said, who actually took the time to read the actual case? 87% said they didn't take the time to read the case. 13% said they did read the case. The exact same amount that thought he was guilty never even read into it. I actually read into the accusations, and I read multiple articles about it, quotes, etc. And I told people, I'm like, I'm not saying Bill Cosby's a great person because I have no idea. Once again, this is not in defense of everything Bill Cosby's ever done, but based off of what I read, I believe that he should not have been charged because the accusations were very, not only flimsy, but kind of evolving and changing, and what was stated versus what the media was saying was not the same. Someone said bro fell off hard. I'm not falling off. It's like, these are just things that nobody read the Bill Cosby case, but people will just say he's guilty. Why? Because the television told you he was. You never even read it. How do you know? With the Andrew Tate situation, I'm not saying I'm going to look at all the information, especially at this point, since I've talked about it so much and got so much backlash. I'll read all the information when all of it comes to light with the Florida thing, and I'll let you know if I think he's innocent or guilty. I'm not saying either right now. I just think it's kind of crazy that they charged him upon landing. I think it's a little much, but when it all comes out, I'll look at that too, and I'll tell you whether I think, they're overdoing it or whether I think he overdid it. So, but it's not falling off. It's just, this is what I really think. The same with all the things. I don't know. If you guys listen, I just told you when the information comes out, I'll read it and tell you what I think. If you want to spurg out in the comments about this for the next 4 months, you can do that. I'm not that interested in it, and I'm not defending him. All right. I'm going to block you because you're literally lying. Now you're literally lying about me. I mean, I'm not going to do this because it's like if you were a news host and you said this, I could probably sue you. Like you're defaming me to like an extreme level. And I'm not, I'm not even right now. For the last 5 minutes, I wasn't even talking about Tate. I was talking about Epstein, and I was talking about Bill Cosby. When it comes to Andrew Tate, I said that I'm going to read the stuff and tell you whether I think he's innocent or guilty with all the information. If you were a journalist and said what you were saying in the comment section, I could probably sue you for defamation and win, because you're saying extreme things about me and extreme things about what I'm saying that are, insane. Like it's much, but whatever. Wasn't Cosby acquitted? I mean, I think he's out of jail now. I don't know if they did a retrial, or I'm not really sure what happened, but dude, nobody read that court case. And it's like, it's the same thing with Andrew Tate. I'm not going to say this again because it's getting annoying. I'm not justifying everything he's ever done. If he committed crimes that end up being real and are chargeable, then there's nothing to defend. I wouldn't defend something that is actually a severe evil crime. But you pathologically lying about me and defaming me in the comments doesn't make me believe you anymore. It just makes me think that you're exaggerating about me, and then you're trying to convince me that you're right about somebody else. Why would I believe you? I'm not saying you're wrong, but I noticed this pattern, and it's getting a little weird. It's like, it's the same thing with the anti-Semitism word. It's like they call Thomas Massie an anti-Semite. They call me an anti-Semite. Why do they call Thomas Massie an anti-Semite? Because he's the best congressman ever. I'm one of the better journalists out there that nailed COVID, that called out this. They called me an anti-Semite because I noticed they were passing anti-Semitism laws, and just noticing the laws is an act of anti-Semitism if you don't speak politically correct about it or whatever. So it's like, then you want me to believe everybody else you accuse of that when you've already accused me and Thomas Massie of the same thing. Why would I believe that? You just like we all have to say what we mean. It's like, you can't just falsely accuse 20 people and then be like, but the 21st person I'm not lying about. Okay, let the courts decide it. I'm not a judge. I'm not a lawyer. It's not up for me to make a final decision about what I think about him right now when I'm willing to listen to more information. I've seen some of the breakdowns on him. He's done and said a lot of things that he shouldn't have. So, that's his life that he's going to have to defend and lead. But it's like, I don't know. The people that are spurging out over it are not to be trusted. Ariel said, I'm a dirty anti-Semite. Well, thank you, Ariel. That's very nice of you to say. I hope you're having a good Wednesday too. Can you name one anti-Semitic thing that I've said, Ariel, or without exaggerating? Let me know. What do you think is anti-Semitic? I would love you to name one thing without exaggerating. Now, let me know if you can do so. Off to work, said Edgar. Happy to catch you live. God bless you. I'll give you a second, Ariel. Can you name one specific thing that I said that is hate speech in that category without exaggerating or making something up? Let me know. We'll be patient there. Where are all the trolls coming from? Like I said, there's certain topics that are just controversial. So I don't know if it's I wouldn't call people trolls. I just think certain people freak out about certain topics. I knew like the Andrew Tate is like a Trump level. It's like Trump to the left. They like freak out. This guy, not really sure what his deal is, but I'm giving him a second to explain what he thinks is hateful. Because a lot of things that people think I said, I've actually never said. So I do want to see what he says. Let's see. Someone said, on a different note, respect your work. Keep it up. Thanks, Alan. Jessica said, of course not. Dale said, keep the truth flowing. Eddie said, we're waiting. Yeah, we are. It shocks me how ignorant some of your viewers are. Someone said, you're guilty of anti-pharmacism. I'm not anti-big pharma. I just report things. I'm not anti the entire industry. It's just like, that's a word they use to stop you from saying they ever did anything wrong in the pharmaceutical industry. Thoughts on Ben Shapiro now defending Derek Chauvin? I'm going to have to talk about that in a different video, because what do I think about him doing it now? I don't know. I mean, interesting timing, but he's entitled to talk about whatever he wants when he wants. So I need to process it before I really talk about it. Someone said, I've also been labeled by ignorant people. I mean, I'm waiting for this guy to I just want to know, because I want to know what specifically I ever said. All right, let me see. I don't think he followed up on it, unfortunately. Oh, well. Yeah. I'm giving him a long time. I don't know. Let's see. Someone, notice how conservative politicians never want to address modern day feminism, because the Republican Party is kind of pretty feminist. Like, even electing Amy Coney Barrett, that was like, guys are getting in too much trouble. Let's just elect a woman, in my opinion. Ray said, really, you don't think women are awful to each other? Take a look at what Hillary did. Oh, of course, women are mean to each other. Maybe you're arguing with someone else. They never reply. Yeah. I'm scrolling. I'm trying to find the response, but it's not. Well, the thing, there are, to be honest, wow, he's probably never going to answer. Someone said truth releases people from echo chamber bars. There's a lot of people that are actually very hateful and, or at least very extreme in their views. I'm really not. Yeah, I guess he didn't answer, but I think and people are probably going to get mad at me for this too, but I think Israel has a right to exist. Most people that don't like Israel, they're like, they should do this or give the land back. It's not going to happen at this point, but also, who am I to tell a country who can and cannot exist? My line in the sand is not, they can't exist. Most people that talk about Israel, they don't all feel that way. For me, it's just I don't run the world. Am I supposed to tell Ukraine Ukraine can defend itself too, but when they're doing it with our taxpayer dollars, now I get to have a say in it because we're funding it. That's my problem with Ukraine is not that they're fighting Russia. It's that they're doing it with my taxpayer dollars and I'm not allowed to talk about it, or else I get labeled a Putin puppet. That's annoying. So it's that's my problem with Ukraine. With Israel, them in Palestine, it's quite the debate, but it's my angle is not you need this or I don't run the world. My angle is there's speech laws in my country being passed against the people here that are lopsided. There's nonstop foreign aid. And then anytime Thomas Massie opposes foreign aid, they call him an anti-Semite. Anytime Thomas Massie votes against a speech bill, they call him an anti-Semite. Anytime a journalist in America reports on this stuff, they call him anti-Semitic. That's my problem. My problem is not Israel existing or having a right to exist. Why do people get so mad at me? You can do what you want in that country. I mean, obviously I can have an opinion about whether I think it's right or wrong, but my issue is the America side of it. I feel like we're getting a lopsided deal. I think any sort of ally, like, why don't they get, if we get Israel speech laws in America, why don't they have American speech laws, since we give them so much money, and stop criticism of America? Like, they don't, you get what I'm saying? It's just, it's a lopsided relationship. So that's my whole issue. But the thing is, and I don't know where that guy went, God bless him. But the thing is, when in 2019, super calm, super reasonable, not angry, not hateful, called it out, got called anti-Semitic, called it out, got blacklisted, called it out, got media smears, called it, like, it's just been nonstop, the other side lying and exaggerating about me and trying to stop my career from flourishing because I noticed these things. So it's like, am I just supposed to like that? Am I just supposed to be like, yeah, that's awesome, that's great, this is the best relationship ever? No, it's annoying. So, any relationship is two-sided. You can't just call people hateful all the time. And this goes for any sort of ism or whatever. It's like, say, like, everyone says it's xenophobia in order to want to shut the border down. Is it xenophobia, or is it just bad policy? Like, maybe people don't hate people, they just hate the fact that their border's open. Are you allowed to hate the fact that your border's open, or is that xenophobic? If there's a high crime rate in your community or in cities around the country, are you allowed to notice why there's a high crime rate, or does that make you a racist? Like, is there any justification for you not liking that, or no, you just have to like it or you're a racist? And it's the same thing with anti-Semitism. It's like, there's some people that are just bad and evil, sure. But if someone's doing something to you, do you have to like it? Like, if I say we should cut foreign aid and they call me anti-Semitic, if I say I don't like anti-Semitism speech laws because they go against the First Amendment and they're lopsided and speech laws don't work, then they call me anti-Semitic. If I say big donors are paying the Republican Party to get things for Israel, because that's 100% true, and they call me anti-Semitic, am I supposed to just like them calling me that and be like, yeah, that's awesome? Or do I have a right to dislike that? And if I dislike that, is that anti-Semitism because I dislike that? Like, these are the questions that nobody asks, because they're just accusing people of things all the time. I'm not, and just like with the Andrew Tate thing, to be clear, I don't need to justify what other people are doing because I'm not those people. Like, it's like, oh, but he has a similar opinion and he did that. That's not my problem. Like, I'm not the police or the parents of some of these other people. Like, there's a lot of influencers that do a lot of stupid crap. In fact, that's the reason I made my channel. I didn't make my channel to become Andrew Tate. I didn't make my channel to become Ben Shapiro or somebody else on the far right or whatever people want to label these people. Like, I made my channel because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. If I agreed with someone else, I wouldn't even be here. I would not even make a video. So it's like, people always try to tie me to people that I don't want to be tied to, where it's like, I'm not going to take all the arrows of what Andrew Tate did. I don't have the money Andrew Tate has. I didn't do the business Andrew Tate did. So why am I going to take all the negative arrows for a guy who did a lot of things that I never would do? It's like, I'm just speaking about it. Am I allowed to speak about anything or no? Am I just going to get falsely accused by everyone all the time of everything every time I talk? Someone said, would Trump talk to Bibi like he did Zelensky? Probably not, but to be fair, Netanyahu would probably never talk to Trump that way. So it's like, Netanyahu is shrewder than Zelensky. Zelensky is like, he's not as shrewd. Netanyahu's been where he's been, whether you like Netanyahu or not. That's not what I'm getting to here. But Netanyahu's been where he's been because he's a smooth character, right? He's been in politics for 30, 40 years. Zelensky's not going to be in politics for 30, 40 years. He's not a smooth character. He's not a good politician. He doesn't know how to have temperament. And, this is not saying that Trump is like, should give everything to Netanyahu, but it's like, I do believe there's a point to be made that Zelensky is way more entitled and spoiled in a non-sophisticated way, and Netanyahu is way more sophisticated to how he maneuvers around Trump, in my opinion. So that needs to be noted as well. Is that a defense of Netanyahu because I said that? No, it's just the reality of the situation. It's like, I can't, I'm not saying people said that, but it's like I can't have an opinion. Like I can't say I'd rather listen to this person than Jasmine Crockett or something. It doesn't mean I agree with all their views. It's just what it is. I prefer the GOP over the Democratic Party. I do. I vote for the GOP. I'm not agreeing with everything they do. It's just when you give me those two options, that's the one I resonate with more because the Democratic Party is unimpressive, miserable, insane, and just so bad. So I lean to the right. It's like, is that bad? Now, am I complicit? Everything Trump's ever done is me now, right? It's all my fault because I feel that way. Okay, that's fair. Someone said, I like Tate on and off, but he acts like a goon. He looked like an ass on PBD yesterday. If I cared enough, I would have already watched that podcast. I've only seen certain clips, but I don't even like to talk about that topic because people lose their minds. But I don't even know if I'm ever going to watch that podcast. I've heard Andrew Tate podcast enough. I probably know a lot of what he said. So it's like, I don't, at this point, I'm not listening to every podcast he puts out. But of course, everything he ever did is my fault, according to some people in the comment section, even though I don't even care enough to listen to his full podcast. All right. I'm going to just block somebody else. It's funny because most shows don't really ever communicate with the audience. I allow people to pretty much say whatever they want when they want, like disagree with me, make good points. But when people spurg out constantly and just like that's the only reason you could literally like make any statement that's like valid against what I'm saying, and I would be like, that's fine. Hold on, I'm trying to find this person. Been like spurging out for like an hour. Let me find it. I guess I can't, so I don't know. Oh well. Where did it go? Hold on 1 second. Oh, there. Let's see. 1 second, folks. Sorry about that. He might have just like removed himself from the chat because I don't even see it. Or maybe it's on a different podcast. I don't know. Oh well. Well, that was fun while it lasted. Am I sunburned? I don't know. Am I? I feel like that's racist. I don't know. You're just saying I'm sunburned because my skin looks a different color, but that's just who I am inside. I actually just changed races. I'm not, my skin doesn't burn. I'm biracial. I change races. Someone said Pig Losi and her blanks were there last night. Well, I don't know about all that. All right, we'll rock with a few more. We'll try to keep this under 2 hours. That makes sense. He was a bot. I guess it like deleted him on his own, whatever. Someone said, I don't like these people because they all run psyops against me personally. All right, dude. Even though I oppose, Sam said, even though I oppose the Israelis and their influence on American politicians, listening to Netanyahu, you could see, sorry, it went away. You could see why he's been popular there. When it comes to politicians, he's a smooth character for sure. He's definitely like, I would say the word, I would say the word shrewd comes to my mind. Like shrewd is a good word, but I know there are different denominations. I don't even know what you're talking about, but do I know that there's different denominations to what? To religions? Yes, I know that. Now that all the lunatic agitators have been hidden, can we discuss cheesecake flavors? I'm not even sophisticated enough to know that there are that many cheesecake flavors. Usually I just get cheesecake. Like I guess there's like raspberry or strawberry cheesecake, but a good cheesecake's good with me. Strawberry, I would say. But Let's see. Do I still have faith in RFK to do the right thing? I hope that RFK does actually do some things that matters and helps the American public, but I just don't like him anymore. I mean, talk about a low move, not only doing the opposite of what he'd do to his own children for the MMR vaccine. That was pretty I didn't like that, but declaring racism a public health threat, like a plague, dude, that's so low. Does that mean he'll never do anything good at the HHS? No, I'm sure he will, but I just don't like him, and he doesn't need me to like him. That's fine. I don't like RFK. Any ounce of respect that I ever had for him, I've completely lost. But that's my thoughts. Some people will overlook that. Some people will agree with it. I know what he's really doing, and everything affects everyone. But the thing is, this is my journey as a journalist. I'll just repeat it, and then I'm going to try to keep this under two hours. When I first came out, the left wing acted insane, right? Like I just started reporting, and as soon as I started, to be honest, when I was more left leaning and I was talking about stuff, I don't even remember Republicans getting mad at me. And I'm not saying they're perfect, but I don't recall them ever being that mad or even caring what I said about like Bernie Sanders when I was younger. Don't remember. Moving forward, when I started liking Trump more and doing honest reporting in his favor, even though I didn't vote for him, Republicans were really nice to me. And then liberals acted psychotic. I mean, most people that like Trump now, they weren't doing reports in 2017 about him. Like some people were, absolutely. But like it's way more mainstream now to like Trump than it was in 2017. You could like lose everything. So the backlash from liberals in 2017 was like crazy to me. I was like, I had no idea that they hated so much. Even though when I did lean left, it wasn't this like deep-seated psychotic hate. Like I was just like, yeah, the Republicans are sold out. Everything was cool with me on the right wing until 2019. As soon as I figured out that Trump and DeSantis were passing anti-Semitism laws, and I read the laws that in some ways make criticism of George Soros anti-Semitism, I'm like, what? This is nuts. As soon as I said it was nuts, accusations of anti-Semitism started coming out against me. People that I knew that worked at news corporations told me, dude, everyone's calling you far right. And I was like, why are they calling me far right? I'm like further at the time. I'm like, I'm further left than like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk acts like a psychopath when he yells about stuff. I'm like super chill. Why are they calling me far right? Like I couldn't even comprehend why they would think that, because at the time, now I consider myself more Republican conservative. At the time, I didn't even like the label right wing. I was like, I'm just doing reporting and I like Trump. That's just how I played it then and how I thought. And I'm like, why would they call me far right? Why are they blacklisting me? This is in 2019. Why are they blacklisting me? Why are they smearing me? Why are they telling everybody not to interview me when I'm crushing? And he said, oh, it's because of the Israel stuff. And I said, what about Israel? I'm not anti-Israel. I'm pro-Israel. I think they have a right to exist. I liked Israel. Even now I don't dislike them, but it's like the taxpayer dollars and the fact that they're just constantly smearing everybody as anti-Semitic when they talk about stuff is annoying. But at the same time, I still think they have a right to exist, etc. But at the time, it's just like, why? I've never said anything about them. Like, I don't get it. And they're like, well, look at this tweet. It was like about like Zionism and donors and like the speech laws. And I'm like, what about those tweets? And they're like, yeah, everyone's saying you're like far right. I'm like, but everything I said is true. But they're like, yeah, but Nick Fuentes retweeted you. I was like, I don't even know Nick Fuentes. And they're like, I'm responsible for people who retweet me. I was like, guys, I get like 20 million views a month. I'm like, I get like tens of thousands of retweets by everybody, including politicians. Like, I'm getting punished because someone you don't like retweeted something I said when I don't even know. Like, this is 2019. I'm like, I've never even spoken to him. Like, why would I get in trouble for him retweeting me? Well, they're saying he's like you. Who's like what? I could say you're like Nancy Pelosi. Like, what the hell? So this has been the way that they've tried to take away my platform. This has been the way that they have blacklisted me from things. This is the reason that they don't want me to go to events. This is why this has been the thing that they've tried to destroy my career and business with for 6 years over accusations of anti-Semitism. It's what they tried to destroy Twitter with, accusations of anti-Semitism to Elon Musk. So there's a reason that I talk about this all the time. It's not even just because, yeah, of course it's everything that I tell you it is, but it's like, this is the thing that they've tried to shut me off over for 5-6 years now. So the further Republicans and RFK start pushing this stuff, the more it's giving people power, justification, money, and resources to basically persecute journalists and citizens who do their job and who say the truth. Thomas Massie is going to have two groups from the left and right of that ethnicity fund his destruction in the Senate if he runs. And he's the best we have. There's a common theme here. So, people that are saying, oh, you're just so, first of all, I'm not hateful. Second of all, I'm not these words, but I do notice that everybody breaks the anti-Semitism hate speech laws because they're so broad and so extremely ridiculous. Trump has broken the anti-Semitism laws, so you can call Trump an anti-Semite. Tom Cotton is fiercely pro-Israel. He's broken the anti-Semitism laws, and there's articles written about it. You can call him an anti-Semite. Ron DeSantis is one of the biggest advocates for the anti-Semitism hate speech rules, the IHRA rules, yet they called DeSantis an anti-Semite in the press because he talks about Soros-funded prosecutors, and that's anti-Semitism according to the rules that he passes. Everybody's an anti-Semite. So it's like when you say you are anti-Semitic, you are anti-Semitic. Everyone, I guess, is according to the rules, because it's like saying everybody's racist because this is the rules that are racism. So, it's multi-layered for me. One, it's anti-First Amendment. Two, it's hypocritical. Three, it doesn't work. Four, policing hate is for the government's ridiculous. Five, policing hate for the government by a health guy who's supposed to look into seed oils and pharmaceuticals is an absolute abuse of power and ridiculous. Six, once again, it doesn't work. And seven, it's how they've tried to ruin my business for 5-6 years. And by they, I mean anybody who's called me that word and tried to write articles about it or behind the scenes. I don't even know who it is, but people at these news organizations being like, don't interview them, don't work with them. It's been happening to me for 6 years because I reported on this stuff. Never been hateful, never hated another country, just speaking the truth. I don't hate any country in the world because I think there's good people everywhere. I'm sorry for that, but I'm not brainwashed enough by media to hate Ukrainians or hate Russians or hate Israelis or hate Palestinians. I don't hate anybody. It's just like, this is what they've done. So when people are like, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. If your business was tried to, was basically targeted multiple times over false accusations of anti-Semitism, and they were trying to stop you from being able to make a living and get your videos taken down on social media and stop you from having interviews and stop you from getting opportunities and stop you from working with sponsors, do you think you'd want Trump to pass more anti-Semitism hate speech laws? Do you think you'd want the HHS director to say that hate from this is a plague, but he doesn't talk about every other kind of hate? No, because he's not talking about hate. He's talking about the IHRA hate speech phrases that they're passing into legislation that they use to persecute any American who notices that lobbyists pay politicians. Fact. Who notices that certain people dominate certain industries. Fact. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it's like you can't even talk about it. If you notice that certain people fund both sides of politics, it's hate speech. If you talk about the biblical discussion around Jesus, that's hate speech. It's like, why would I support these hate speech phrases, especially when they've used them to try to take my career away? They tried to take Elon Musk's business away. They said it was anti-Semitism, and then they tried to get all the advertisers to pull. So the people that say, I don't understand, no, you don't understand. Not only do you not understand from a First Amendment standpoint or what they're really trying to do, and then people are like, well, it doesn't have any legal basis anyway, then why are they passing them? But it's for illegal protests. Then why are the protests, if they're an illegal protest, they're not a protest. Any illegal protest, the police can intervene. Any illegal protest should have a bill that says if they violate the law, then we're going to cut funding to you. If you're allowing illegal crimes to happen at okay, that's fair. But it's not any crime and it's not any illegal protest. It's one topic, and two, pushing that topic further to then pervert what it means to protest. Like, I've seen people tweeting, they're like, haha, people who protest, you're either going to get sent in jail if you're an American or deported. And these people are not saying what Trump's saying, which is like, if it goes illegal, they're getting so ramped up off all these laws that they're like, no, we're going to arrest everybody who protests against it. Because they're going to try to say, if you protest against Israel, then you're hurting people's, because it's one race and one religion, even though everybody is not connected to there. But now you're basically targeting and discriminating against one group. So they're not going to just stop at illegal protests. I don't care if they arrested every person who did something illegal. It's like, okay, you're all like taking over the chamber of Congress and throwing a fit. Arrest them all. I don't care if it breaks the law and it's not a legal protest, I don't care if it's for Israel. I don't care if it's for abortion. I don't care if it's for Mexico. I don't care if it's a pro-Republican like one. It's like, follow the rules of protesting or don't, like it's not, I'm very honest about it. It's like, I'm not going to justify an illegal event that is not a protest, but that's not what they're doing. Just the truth. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Appreciate you for being here. Have a lovely day. And I will be back with more videos soon. Hopefully, most people understand what I'm talking about today and do not get this all misconstrued. But who knows? Either way, it is what it is. It's been said. It's been done. I'll be back with more videos soon. And I appreciate everyone for being here. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/rare.